Hi, this is Bea from Sorcery Soap, and today we're going to make world peas soap. And this idea came from basically our culture, from seeing what's going on and realizing that I wanted to do something to help. It's a complicated idea trying to help, but I have a lot of people come to me with their hand out and not asking to help me, but just asking me to give them something. And so I decided that I want to work with people who are happy to work with me and don't ask me for anything. So I made these world peas soap, and obviously it's a pun of world peace. But I thought if I could help create a little bit of joy for each person that is affected by the soap, or possibly works with the soap, or even accepts the world peas soap and then makes a soap that they might not have created before, it's a step in the right direction. Because I guess because soap is really truthful. It works or it doesn't work. And truth is important. And truth based on fact is even more important. So anyway, here we go. Enough of that. So this is the new neon blue. Hopefully you could see the color. It's pretty spectacular. It's pretty like my new favorite blue ever in the world. In the world. Okay, here we go. So far what I've done is I made 2 sets of world peas, little earths, and I sent them to 2 different people and they created soaps. And then they hashtag world peas soap or world peas, and then try to get other people to do it, because this isn't just like a one-time occurrence. We could continue this, and you can make the soap any way you want. It's just that you collaborate with somebody else. You are in harmony with somebody else. You support them and they support you, and you don't take their ideas and they don't take yours, but you support each other. And that seems like a nicer world to live in. So anyway, in my book, I write, in the Magic of Soap Dough book, I write about when you start with soap dough, you want to work with it a little bit, and one of the first things that you want to do is roll it into a sphere. And it is much harder than you would think. But when you start to do this, you feel it and you figure out how much pressure it needs in order to get perfectly round. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, like mechanical perfect, but that's pretty round. So the other thing that I wanted to point out before we get on to the other parts is that making this soap, the earth part, the blue part, you can make the earth any color you want, and just like be creative. Ones I made with all green on them, like little green continents, and they weren't specific at all. And then one I made with each earth had a different color of continents, like pink, blue. I'll put some pictures up so you can see. And but here's my suggestion: is make all your earths first. Earths, I like saying earths versus earth. Make all your earths first and let them like dry just a bit, and then go back and re-roll them with very clean hands. And you're going to see that you can make them shiny. So, and to me, that's very cool. I like them when they look shiny, and I like them when they look almost like not soap, like sort of plastic-like, I guess. It's not the plastic I like. I just, maybe just the shiny part. Because after you roll them a few times, your hands get a little bit of soap on there, and so it's good to clean that off. I just usually, instead of getting up and go into the sink every 5 minutes. I mean, I do that too, but use a little alcohol and wipe your hands on alcohol. Oh my gosh, the world is insane. So here we go. So, and then once you've rolled the blue spheres, or whatever color earth you want to make, because you're an earth creator. That's the other thing. It's kind of cool to think about, I'm creating little mini earths. So there, and let them dry for a bit, and then you're going to go to the next layer. Okay, so I've let these set for about half an hour, and now I'm re-rolling them, and then they're much smoother, so it just smooths them out a bit. And I'll do every single one to make them more uniform. And I was going to show you, I was going to weigh them on a little tiny gram scale, but I can't seem to find it. So this one I wanted to leave because this one has a little crack, and I wanted to show you how it's okay that this happens. They don't have to be exactly perfect, because we'll cover that up with a little tiny continent right there. It's less important that they're perfect, I think. We just strive for it every single time. And more important that at this stage, if you're just working on rolling balls of soap dough, it's more important that you just move forward. Whoops, almost dropped it. You just move forward. So I won't subject you to me rolling all these out. So this is a pretty, I think this is actually neon green. I'm looking over it's brighter. The neon green is much brighter, but it's not ready. We're going to cut that today, so that should be ready for Friday, because today's Wednesday, yeah. So that should be ready for Friday. So I'm going to use some neon green. I'm going to use some white because I want clouds on these earths today. Earths. Such a weird word. Okay, so let's choose one little earth to create, since we are the creators and creatrix in this little realm. Okay, so a little water and a paintbrush. Put that there. I usually spill it. So we'll just take a little bit, and let's see. You know, the shape I really like, and I rarely ever remember it off the top of my head. South America, I really like that shape. I always wanted to go to South America. I think it would be fun. Well, I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun. But I'm not a really great traveler, honestly. I'll do it for it. But that's the weirdest thing, is like I'll start to travel, and then once I get into it, I really, really like it, and I don't want to go home. So that is not accurate. I just want you to know that's totally not accurate. So, and I didn't use any water, because if the soap dough is a little sticky, it'll stick right away. I just smooth the edges down with a little bit of water, and it'll stick, no problem. You can smooth it out a bit. See how nice and shiny that is? Okay, so let's create the other part of nothing accurate, by the way. This, I'm going to call this Europe, Russia, Greenland, all that right up there, one big blob. There we go. That's one place I would really love to visit, is Sweden. That's where half my people came from. My grandfather came to the United States. So I'm on one side, I'm third generation, and then on the other side, I'm second generation American. So my grandfather came to the United States with his brother and sister and his mom and dad. And they were in a carriage accident shortly after they arrived in America. And I don't know what the circumstances are. I don't know why they came. There's probably a lot of the reasons why everybody comes to America. They think it'll help them get a better life and change themselves and to better themselves. Anyway, so my grandfather came with his brother and sister and his mom and dad. And okay, now we're gonna, one of my favorite places in the world, by the way, little side note, Australia/New Zealand, right there. Never been there, but lots of great people come from there. Anyway, So back to the story. So my grandfather and his whole family came, and they were in a carriage accident shortly after they got here, and his mother and father were killed. So my great-grandparents. So he and his little brother and sister were put into an orphanage, and that, I mean, a proper orphanage. And when I say that just, there's so much trauma for them. When they got together, they just cried to see each other. And I never understood that. I just didn't get it. And then later on, as I grew up, I understood it a little bit more. So anyway, there's this. And my grandfather was a chief of police. Chief of police. We were not allowed to call police cops. He said that that was rude. And I loved that my grandfather was a policeman. And I always felt really safe with him. And he let me wear his hat, and I get to examine his badge and sit on his lap. And he took us to church in his uniform. I was very proud of him. And you know, my grandfather did a lot of great stuff as a police officer. He considered being a police officer keeping the peace. And that was his objective, to keep the peace. So, you know, occasionally there was like Saturday night, somebody get drunk and rowdy, and he'd put him in jail for the night and let him sleep it off, because he knew them as a person. You know, he knew them in town, and he knew that they just like crossed the line, and it wasn't a big deal. It was just, you know, need to sleep it off. And one time I asked him, he told me that they were not bad people. He said that there were people who made mistakes. And he said, now granted that was for my benefit because I was a little kid. I've since learned that that's not true, but it was kind of him to say. And I asked him one time, what was the hardest part about being a police officer? And like, tell me stories. I always wanted him to tell me stories. And he never did. He never really told us any stories at all. He was just, he'd show up, and when, you know, he never brought his cruiser. He would, he had a car that the police would sell their old cars or something. I'm not really sure, but he had a car that was like a police car, but it was not painted or anything. It didn't, you wouldn't know it was a police car. It was the same kind of police car. But anyway, I loved his car. And I loved that he smelled like leather and, I don't know, my grandfather, that's what he smelled like. So anyway, I asked him that what's the hardest part to be a police officer or something, I don't know, something to those lines. I was a little tiny kid, so I wasn't like very big. If I was little enough, so I was probably 6 or 7, he let me sit on his lap. And he got real quiet, and he said, the hardest part was when the river froze over. And you can stop this now if you don't want to hear this. It's totally okay. I don't even have to tell a story if you don't want, but I'll tell you. So he said the hardest part to being a police officer is when the river froze over and kids would still go sledding, and they'd break through the ice and they'd have to dredge the river. That was the hardest part for him. Now, granted, we live in a really small town, and being a police officer today is very, very different. It's very different. But that's the whole point of being a police officer, is supposed to be keeping the peace. That's the point of it, to keep they're not meant to protect us from ourselves necessarily. Help keep the peace. And I just wanted to say that. I saw, not too long ago, I was at the gas station, and there was a state trooper there. I'm going to make noise, hang on. And I could see his vehicle because it had lots of antennas on it, you know, and I'm familiar with police officers and all that. And so I was like, oh, not because I broke the law, but because I grew up like that. So anyway, I was like looking at it, I'm like, state trooper, wow, those guys are serious business, you know what I mean? And I saw him getting his gas, and I was thinking to myself, I don't know anything about this man. I don't know anything about him, but I just had such a big desire to go over and shake his hand and just say thank you. But I was really emotional, And I thought I would start maybe telling him the story about my grandfather and why I felt so compelled to say thank you for doing your job no matter what. Just getting out there doing your job. And I'm not judging it. I'm not forming an opinion about him as a person. Just the fact that he's braver than I am to put on a uniform and go out there and do his job. And I almost did, and I could feel myself. I was getting ready, and then he got done. And I was like, oh, I started to make myself tear up by thinking about my grandfather. And I was like, oh, I can't do that, right? So I was just sitting there in the car waiting for my guy to come out of the 7-Eleven. And so he was walking into 7-Eleven in front of my car, and I was going to try and catch his eye and just like wave at him, make myself feel better. Because, mostly that was about me. But I did want to thank him. But then when I start putting all the story on top of it, that's all about me, right? He doesn't need to know, doesn't care, as one human being to the other. It's like, yeah, nice story, but I'm busy pumping gas, But had I gone over to him and just thanked him, I guess, and let him know that I'm one person and I don't hate him, no matter what, just didn't make any difference to me. It's just is the fact that he's willing to do something that I'm not willing to do, which I think is kind of admirable. Anyway, and then I realized that not all policemen are bad, that's like saying all soap makers are bad. It's ridiculous. Or saying all people are bad. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, so I didn't get out of the car, and he went by, and I didn't catch his eye because he looked a little busy. And that's supposed to be a cloud, by the way. And he went in. But I thought about him. I could see his face in my mind still to this day. I thought about him for days. 4 days. And then I started, of course, thinking about my grandfather. And about, did I ever get the feeling that he was a bad person? Just like that kind of thinking process. I don't know, there's so much anger and so much hate in this world right now. I think the whole objective is to stand strong against it. No, I'm not going to allow the hate in, not going to allow the anger. I don't care what that means. I don't care. And I'm not going to allow the lack of logic in either for myself. It's just illogical, a lot of this stuff. It's illogical. It's not fact-based. So, and me, if you watch this channel at all, I'm prone to a little magical thinking. So, anyway, so I kind of like that. I kind of like the little clouds. I suppose I can make them a little bit tinier. Okay, so here's kind of a good example. Right there's a little hole, and I could just put a little cloud on top of it. There. Let's see if I can, a little cloud over here. Has the weather been changing in your area? Because I've really noticed the weather changed quite a bit here. I'm in the desert, Southwest, and I've really noticed the weather changed a lot. And what I chalk it up to, what I kind of suspect it is, oh, that could be a good cloud. Look how kind of transparent that is. What I suspect it is when we had a couple months of not very many people driving around, and there definitely wasn't any planes. And that is fascinating to me, that the weather can change that dramatically because of that. Okay, so I kind of like that. So each one you can make really unique. And let's see, let's do one more. And I'm going to make up a country. I'm going to call it Bhaktiland. That was like zero thought. Okay, let's not call it Bhaktiland. I don't know. We'll call it... Let's call it Atlantis. How about that? We'll call that Atlantis. Except Atlantis was supposedly circular, like had concentric circles in it. So anyway, you get the gist of the idea. And so that I could get this video up, I'll not subject you to all 21 of my Earths. But because here when you make your soap overall, you're going to put these earths on top of it. But you could do other things, like I put peas next to it because I had to be obvious. I had to be most obvious with it. Let's put some cloud formation in the over here. You know, I guess, I don't even know. I think there's a lot of people that know what's going on in the world and they see it because they're logical thinkers like I am. And I'll be interested to see how it all turns out. Mildly interested, actually, mildly interested, because if this craziness continues to go on, you know, I just don't want any part of that craziness at all. None. And I'm an orderly person, so. And I learned a couple things as a kid. That is, respect other people's property. Don't ask for something unless you're willing to trade. Don't ask for something unless you're willing to trade. I will clarify that because I have tons of people request things of me all the time. I don't know those people. They're like, can you donate to this charity? Can you donate to that charity? Whatever. Well, number one, most things that you donate to charity do not end up where they're intended. And lots of them are corrupt. And I'm not even going to get into that because you don't want to know my thoughts of it. But I'm not kidding. Lots of them are corrupt. And if I mention them, then I will have a problem. I will have a problem. So we're not going to do that. We're going to talk in code. That's what we're going to do because that's how much we're being censored. Oh, I said the word. We're going to talk in code. So one of the reasons why, a new little plug. One of the reasons why I'm moving everything to, backing up everything. Sorry, not moving. Sorry. Moving, I'm backing up everything to library and BitChute. Not as much BitChute because it's kind of tedious to back it all up, but it automatically backs up to library. You could watch it over there without ads. Not that YouTube cares whether I make money or not, obviously. I think I made maybe for 6 years or 5 years I've been doing this. I think maybe I made $500 or something. Nothing significant, and I never ever pay attention. I don't even notice if I don't even think they've ever paid me. I don't even know what happened to any of that money, supposed money, whatever. So whatever, I don't care. I write books. That's my point. I write books and I teach, and that's more important than that shenanigans and whatever. So yes, I'm moving some stuff over. So if you want to watch without ads, go over to library. There you go. Anyway, so you kind of get the point. You don't have to watch all these being made or listen to my blather. So there you go. There's some little earths. Some clouds, new clouds. I like the clouds on there actually. I think it's kind of cool. So the whole point is make these earths, let them cure for a bit. Like I'm going to let these set for probably a week. And then I'm going to send 10 to iVet. And then I'm going to send 10 to whoever answers the question. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great day.